Welcome to Markets Now. I'm Michelle Rook with Boddicker Farmers Trading Company. We are mixed in both grain and livestock futures this morning. Let's start off over in the grains bins. We have soybeans back to the plus side. We had a little two-sided action there this morning already, but beans continue to be very, very resilient, don't you think?
Yeah, they do, especially as you're moving farther into harvest. And our part of the country, I was amazed in the last 3 or 4 days what it's been taken out for beans. There's not a long way to go yet, but I got to believe if we're here, a lot of the country's rolling pretty well. If you got that kind of hedge pressure out there and the market isn't getting beat up, it's got a bit different attitude than it had.
Yeah, no doubt. It's been interesting. I think yesterday we probably did see a little bit of farmers selling, but we haven't seen a whole lot of hedge pressure yet. This could be the 6th higher weekly close, Ben. So in your mind, is the low in? And from a historical standpoint, how much do we normally rally off the low when we put in an early low?
Typically I would think there's a good shot you have the low end just the way we've reacted. Could we stop in here and the crop come in where they thought or bigger than they thought, or next to Monday when you have the quarterly stocks? If they find more beans in storage and they think they had whatever it could be, could you come down and take out those lows or retest them? Yeah, you could. The second part of your question is whenever you put the fall low in, which can be anywhere from August to October, but usually that somewhere between the 3rd and the 10th of October, you do get a pullback in there someplace. You'll rally 80 cents to $1.20. And when you look at Wednesday's high in here, November beans rallied just shy of $1.10 off of that bottom. So you're right near historical rally points. You came right to the 100-period moving average. Maybe you went through it a partial of a penny here on November. The rest of them didn't quite get there. But all of those indicating that you probably need some more fresh news to keep this thing going much further.
Yeah. So is the wild card for beans, you think, whether the weather stays dry in Brazil? Is that the key here or not?
Right now, for what one would see, I think so. That, or if for some reason the money flow gets intrigued to come into the commodity markets, whether that be for thinking inflation's coming back, or hey, we think the stock markets went far enough, we want to put our money someplace else. That could be another standpoint that gets it going. But I think you need something besides just the normal stuff. Otherwise, you may put a top in enough that you have to fall out of bed. But you could do some sideways stuff in here for a while.
Yeah. Of course, we've been pushed this week a little bit by the news of China's stimulus package, also the talk that they've been buying beans. But we are starting to catch up on our soybean export sales, and we even got some export sales on soybean oil this morning. How encouraged have you been by all that?
We've been really discouraged until let's call August, a month ago or a little bit more, when we finally started to pick up those export sales. We were second lowest in history since I've been watching at that point. I don't know where we're at this point historically, but we have done a good job, I think, and you get that 1.5 million to 2 million plus every week. We can catch up on those things and make everybody feel better, because this is the time that we need to be selling beans.
So corn is trying to follow soybeans a little bit. We're just slightly higher, but we've been on both sides of steady there as well already this morning. What's your sense about the corn market? Have we just kind of carved out a trading range we're going to stay in for a little while, or where do you see us going?
I think that's a good possibility, Michelle. I think the 421 to 423 area in D's corn, I'd have to go look at numbers and correlate those in March and in May. I think it's going to be tough to get a lot higher than that unless we find different news than we have right now. Carryout's going to be a decent number in here. We all know that. Crop that's coming in to harvest looks like it should be a good one. Now it comes down to the point, are there enough problems in the world as we come into this next year and in South America that it makes a difference? From a farmer standpoint, you got to hope so. But like anything else, if it's going to be a drought or a weather problem, you hope it's on somebody else and not you.
Yeah, I feel like the corn has been kind of a follower, though. I mean, today's a good example. soybeans go up, so wheat tries or corn tries to follow, but wheat's going the opposite direction, and corn gets stuck in the middle, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. It's definitely not been a leader, and I think there's enough supply out there that it's not going to get to be a leader. But it's probably a situation that if you're a livestock feeder and you have to buy corn, you may be wanting to look at this as harvest gets rolling in here. Not sure if basis is going to widen or what it's going to do. It's held pretty good so far, better than I thought it would. But one has to think as you get into that glut or latter part of harvest, when things get full, that'll be the real test of where demand is at and where basis is at.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, wheat market is lower this morning. We didn't have very good export sales yesterday. And so is the market sensing that, hey, we can't get too high before we are not competitive, or what's going on in that market? Or is it weather? I don't know.
I think that's part of it. You that I watch the Kansas City D's right now, and the 592 to 610 area are probably going to be able to top, maybe get to 620 or 630. Right now, with the supplies of wheat we have, I don't see a lot more than that. But at least we're picking up, and we're not getting beat up like we did in June, July, and early August, and these things. And you're changing attitudes a bit in here, but I don't see any big runaways to the upside.
Yeah, again, do you feel like we have adequately priced in some of the weather and some of the global production concerns?
For right now, with I think the supplies you have, the answer is yes. We, how do we put it? I think when we look at the world carryout numbers, one of the things that was brought out a couple of years ago that I think we have to remember is, are we at some historically high numbers for world wheat carryout? We are, but prior to, I think it was 2005 or 6 or 7 in there someplace, none of those numbers included Chinese stocks, and now they do. So that it skews it a little bit on where you think you're at, and even is China telling you the truth? You never know that one. But I think we have to keep that in mind. So maybe it's not quite as burdensome as you think it is. But I think there's plenty of wheat in the world for right now. If we get a few more weather problems, then we start maybe getting a little more push from that side.
Gotcha. And you mentioned the quarterly stocks report out on Monday, and it's in a month and a quarter. Could Monday be pretty wild, or what are you expecting out of USD in terms of quarterly stocks?
I try not to ever guess what they're going to do. Don't want it to be bearish, don't want it to be bullish. It's always nice from a farmer standpoint of where we've been. If we can close the day higher and not well off the highs, you had a moral victory. But yeah, we got to be a little careful with the rallies we've had in the grains. You could get a significant sell-off for a few days in here and kind of bring things to reality. And if you do, then you got to look at it and say, okay, are we continuing lower, or was this a correction that I thought we may get?
Gotcha. Cattle market, we're up into some new highs for the move again today, pushed by higher cash. How much farther do you think we can push that market?
Cash, you're getting overbought technically. I'm just looking at an October chart in here, and I'm right against some resistance lines that I've had for a long time around 185. If I look at the D's market, I'm just above a trend line this morning. Again, are we overbought in all these? We are. Maybe could you put another $4 or $5 on cattle when you get decent fed? Yeah, I'm not sure you do a lot more than that though. It's all going to come down to dead box beef price. Can we pick up exports a little bit? Can we get that consumer to continue to buy beef? If we can, then we're okay. We have to remember we've had some pretty good inflationary numbers, so we should be able to get cattle numbers up here and actually hold better than we think we should because of those things. But again, money flow is still going to be the key.
No doubt. And hogs are a good example of that. We started off a little lower this morning. Hogs and pigs report, at least some of the marketing weight breakdowns were a little bit bearish, but we're starting to come back. What's your sense of that market in terms of where we go from here?
As you look at what you talked about, the two bigger weight ranges being higher than the trade was guessing they were going to be. Still think the trade was thinking they were going to be bigger than last year. They were going to be testing some capacity limits as we got into October, November, even early December. So whether it's as big a surprise as some may think, I'm not sure it is if you've really watched the market and had your own idea of what it may do. But I don't see a lot more to the upside. Maybe for some reason you might get October to 84, but that's going to be tough to do much more than that. The other ones I think maybe get into a $10 trading range.
Yeah. And the funds have really pushed this thing, so they might be done going long or pushing the long side for a little while, you think?
Yeah, I'm going to have to look and be interested and get the commitment of traders report today and see just where they've been at here. But yes, open interest has been up almost every day for the last 2.5 weeks, and some 3 to 4,000 a day, which is a pretty good climb. Which means you have some buying interest in there. And the real question gets to be how much more are they going to do? As you noted, I wouldn't think it would be a lot unless there's some other news out there that we're not looking for.
Yeah. One last question for you. PCE out this morning, 2.2%. Of course, that was below expectations. Do you feel like the market is getting the sense that, hey, the economy is okay? And what impact will that have on money flow, do you think?
I think that the market or the general people watch the stock market a lot. I think you have to go further than that when you really look at the economy itself. What percentage of the people in this country really live on the stock market? It's a good thing, don't get me wrong, and it means there's some investor confidence there, but you still have to look at the trucking business, which is a bit slow. And that's usually some indicators to be a little careful. But I think the economy is holding in there fairly well. And it just gets to be the point of money flow and psychology is a big thing. And if you can keep a positive attitude, you get some reports that come out like this morning, and maybe they're not as good as you think they are, but as long as they're not in the toilet someplace, that gets to be the key.
All right. Thanks for joining us, Vince Boddicker, Farmers Trading Company. That is Markets Now.